Students, a very good morning and welcome to the class. Yesterday we started the poem Love Poem for a Wife 1 by A.K. Ramanujan. We are doing a textual analysis of this poem. Students, as we read yesterday and when we went through the poem, we came to realize that Ramanujan is deeply rooted in Indian culture and yet fully cosmopolitan. Famous critic Bruce King has correctly opined about A.K. Ramanujan that perhaps he is the world's greatest scholar of languages and literature of southern India. Students, yesterday I told you that Ramanujan married to a Syrian Christian wife, and for most of his life he worked as a professor in an American university. The poem that we started yesterday and the part that we analyzed yesterday, it tells us that his poetry is rooted in and stems from Indian environment and reflects its modes often ironically. The stanzas that we read yesterday tells us that exactness and details are the characteristics of his poetry. He signals the centrality of family in his poetry. This poem indicates that Ramanujan thought that Indians have a sensitive sense of familial self. They carry India and its memories wherever they go. And this poem is an example of it. So, yesterday we read that in a mocking way, the poet recounts the memory of an evening party at which his cousins, his wife's cousins were present, and with brandy and cashew, they remembered their each other's childhood incidents. They discussed them. His wife always was eager to know about his past, and the same was with A.K. Ramanujan. Whenever she told him about his village dog rides and about his crazy ants, if he felt a sort of enchantment. And on the other hand, when he informed her about his father's having a bath noisily, or about the village home that he had way back in India, she became engrossed. She loved all those details. And sometimes even they had argumentation over the things that they discussed in such parties. So he recounts one more incident. He remembers one more incident from the life of his Syrian Christian wife. And he says, the screen is there is the poem is there on the slides. He will acknowledge the wickedness of no reminiscence, no, not the burning end of the cigarette in the balcony, pacing to and fro as you came to the gate late, after what you thought was an innocent date with a nice Muslim friend, only who hinted at touches. So, turning to his wife's past, the poet remarks that his wife's father, who is now very old and has forgotten about past things, he this father of his wife's, he has forgotten now the evening when she used to come too late after having the company of a Muslim friend. Ramanujan remembers how one day he kept pacing to and fro in the balcony to wait for his daughter's coming, and who came up late that evening, having an innocent date with her Muslim lover who only hinted at touches. His wife was was from Syria and she was a Christian, and they had a different past. They didn't share a common past. Their backgrounds were different. His wife's past affair with a Muslim, it seems, still bothers A.K. Ramanujan and is perhaps one of the potent cause for their marital disharmony. After having a dig at his wife, the poet recalls another experience which has a reflection on her pose of superiority and false family pride. Now, line says, only 2 weeks ago in Chicago, you and your brother James started one of your old drag out fights about what bathroom was in backyard. North or south of the well, next to the jackfruit tree, in your father's father house in Aleppo, sister-in-law and I were blank cutouts fitted to our respective slots in room. So, Ramanujan remembers some more incidents that denote that as his wife seldom visited his parental house back in India in the town of Aleppo, she and her brother, they discuss about the bathroom that was there in the backyard of the house along with a dying tree, and she has a big quarrel or an argumentation with her brother about the position of the bathroom at poet's parental house way back in India. And he says, A.K. Ramanujan says, that he remembers how she and her brother James started a drag out fight regarding the location of a bathroom in their grandfather's house in Aleppo. Ramanujan remembers that he and his sister-in-law became completely ignored as his wife and her brother continued to hotly discuss the matter and sketch blueprints of a house from memory on anything they could find handy. So he taunts at his wife's common sense, who would reflect itself in her wagering higher looms, and her husband's earning when her uncle in Kuwait would say about what about the bathroom, the well, and a nearby tree in the house. Really, nowhere as the two of you got down to the floor, draw blueprints of a house from memory of everything from newspapers to the backs of envelopes and road maps of United States that happened to flap in the other room in a midnight wind. You waged higher looms and husbands earning on what the Kuwait uncle in Kuwait would say about the bathroom and the well and the dying, by now dead. Tree next to it, probably only the Egyptian had it right. Their kings had sisters for queens to continue the incests of childhood into marriage, or we should do as well meaning Hindus did. From the given accounts, A.K. Ramanujan infers students that he and his wife have different pasts that account for marital differences. And in the last stanza of the poem, A.K. Ramanujan says that probably only the Egyptian had it right. Their kings had sister for queens to continue the incest of childhood into marriage, or we should do as well meaning Hindus did. Betroth us before birth, forestalling separate horoscopes and mother's first periods, and wed us in oral cradle and carry marriage back into the namelessness of childhood. According to A.K. Ramanujan, there can be two ways to overcome such differences that exist in two people when they are in marriage. One way is to follow the examples of ancient Egyptian kings who married their own sisters, shared each other's childhood experiences, and overcame all problems that came into their married life. And according to Ramanujan, the other way is that of well meaning Hindus who betrothed their children before birth, even before their mothers had their first periods, and carried marriage back into the namelessness of childhood. Both ways are, of course, unthinkable in the present context. So, students, this is an unusual love poem. There is no romance left in love, if at all there is any, between husband and wife. Both of them are wary of each other, and yet they are bound to each other, not by any invisible force of love, but by due to the circumstances they are together. So, students, the Indian sensibility is to be found in every Indian, and family figures most eminently in Ramanujan's poetry. Actually, family may be considered as one of the prime motives of his verse. His poetry is primarily based on the memories of his past life, and he cannot obliterate even after residing. He cannot obliterate it even after residing in West. The sense of Indianness was always lingering in his mind and occupied its place in his heart. Students, as we have seen, memory becomes an important source in vivifying his relationship with India, within and without. So, students, here the textual analysis of the poem Poem for a Wife 1 comes to an end. Thank you very much for today.